Hello and welcome to the Startline podcast. I'm Beth Espy, and this is where we get to know the riders behind the visors, the racers who build, rebuild and push themselves to the limit to line up on race day. Over this series, we're following racers as they chase their goal of reaching the MGP in 2026. In this episode of Startline, we meet Adrian O'Connor. It's a classic TT that Adrian wants to be competing in next year. He's put his expression of interest in, and there's so many reasons why he wants to be on the start line. We'll explore some of them in this episode. But first, I asked him to give us an idea of where his life is up to at this point in time.
Got two little babies, 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, Gracie and Quinn. If I didn't have them, I'd be called Marketplace Racing. It's called Gracie Quinn Racing, but it would be Marketplace Racing because everything comes from Marketplace. Where are we going? I started racing 3 years ago in Suzuki Bandits because it's affordable. Even though it's affordable, it's still expensive. But I haven't smoked a cigarette, eaten a chocolate bar, bought a sandwich in a supermarket or a coffee, or had a drop of alcohol in 3 years. Most of my clothes, I think people who've owned gyms have donated to me. They've gone, you've been wearing that T-shirt for 20 years, have one of these. But in all of that, I've got to go to Donington, Mallory, Brands Hatch, and did Aberdare this year. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey. When I was 12 years of age, I ran all the businesses in my hometown, which is Killarney in Southern Ireland, County Kerry. Massive tourist town. Looking for sponsorship to go racing. And they all asked me, what did I win? And as a 12-year-old, I'd won nothing. And I'd nobody in my family interested in motorbikes. So I never went motorbike racing. 38 years later I started. And it's been a really, really good voyage. Coming second in the Bandit Championship last year, my first full season. Second this year. The second isn't so much the greatest thing this year, it's the improvement on times and just took seconds off. I think in any other year I would have won. The times were really good. The Manx is the cause of a chap by the name of Will Birchall, who gave me a paddock pass for this year and got up at 5 o'clock every morning and did between 2 and 3 laps of the island. I think I did 837 or 8 miles in 9 days, going roundy, within the speed limits, of course. And I just fell in love with it. And it's not as scary as I thought, and really enjoyed it. And that's where I am. Well, actually, where I really started was I wrote to them a year ago because the big thing was age, which as of a couple of days ago has been stopped. And I said, should I worry about my age? And this wonderful woman, Heather, replied to me from the Manx office. And she said, no, worry about your results. So in 25, everywhere I've come first, second and third in most races in my on my old faithful Bandit.
Wow, Adrian, it's quite a story already, isn't it? And I'm just intrigued. I just want to take you back to what you said about your commitment to this in terms of, not drinking, not smoking, not really allowing any of those what people might think of life's luxuries in some ways. I mean, has that been a bit of a hardship?
No, because, let's be honest, motorcycle racing's your hobby. All these people constantly look for sponsorship. I'd love to race a more expensive class, but the tyres would kill me. I can turn up to any racetrack or anywhere I go. I've done it the hard way, and it makes you work harder. You don't waste your time when you get there. You don't go drinking beer. Yeah, sometimes I get a bit too serious in it. But, I put 110% effort into every single thing I do. I come to this country, I come to England with nothing. It's been really good to me. I boxed before this till breaking my neck. Got the 2 ABA finals, 10 fights and under, 20 fights and under. That was taken away from me. That was something I wanted to do as a child, wasn't able to do. Motorbike racing was the second thing I wanted to do. Couldn't do that. So I think, when you deny yourself stuff, you work harder in other places. I think when other people pay for your pleasures, do you really put as much effort in? Don't know.
What is it like then, Adrian, when you talked about the boxing, motorcycle racing, and not being able to actively pursue those at the time that you wanted to? What sort of headspace does that put you in?
I think motorcycles was my first love. Ireland was, I sort of grew up in a controlling environment. When I look back at it as an older man now, it's pretty much a communist society ruled by the church and the government. But I think I was about 9 years of age. I walked down the street on a Sunday and there was a load of what I presume to be Z900s or CB750s, and these English bikers, maybe 20 of them with their girlfriends, all dressed in leathers, sat beside the street eating chicken and chips, and it was the biggest fingers up to Irish society I ever saw. I think that's what made me fall in love with motorbikes. It was the rebelliousness. I wasn't a motorcycle racer. I've got no family. I do everything off my own back whilst looking after my family. But motorbikes, they were just a big big rebelliousness. They were just a big, anti-establishment. And I never had any money, so I always had bangers of motorbikes. I saved up about a Honda 90, not a step-through, an S90Z. And I bought Brian Critchen's You and Your Bike, $4.95 in Killarney Bookshop. And I learned everything you could ever learn out of that book. Started fixing guys' bikes in my hometown when I was probably 14, 15. The motorbikes were always way more important than boxing. I think boxing just because I was angry and it was just a great place to leave it all come out, But motorbikes were my first love. But money is the biggest thing with bikes. I didn't have any. So, where was it going? Of course, Mad Max 1. Watched that. I've been to all the places in Australia where Mad Max was filmed. Monday Plains. Funnily enough, there's a guy called Adrian from Yorkshire runs the Mad Max Museum in Silverton. But motorbikes, to fast forward onto nearly 50 years of age, 3 years into racing them, applying for the Classic TT, it's just a pinch myself moment, The very first letter I wrote to Heather, I was shaking writing it. Every time I think about it, it scares the living hell out of me. But anything that scares you, you've got to go and do it. Otherwise, you live with such regret, I think. But yeah.
What do the family make of it, Adrian? You mentioned you've obviously got 2 young children. I think they're very young, aren't they? So it's a full packed life that you have at the moment.
It is, and it's just wonderful. And I race with North Gloucestershire, MG. What a wicked club. It's like going back to the 90s, they'll probably give out to me for this. I'm politically incorrect. Your tools are lying around, your generator, your caravan's wide open. Nothing goes missing. And for me, bringing the kids racing is everything. I want them to see a way of life that's fastly declining. We're going to be lucky if we have motorbike racing in 10 years' time, the way this ban on petrol and ban on this and, So for me, I just want my kids to see a dad doing something different. And of course, me being a rebel, when I had to get their birth certs, the woman said, "What's your job?" And I thought, well, I'm not going to put down digger driver, lorry driver, pub landlord. So I put down boxer, motorcycle racer, and entrepreneur. And she said, "You can't have 3 occupations." I said, "Well, what one would you like me to stop doing?" So she emails this one, emailed that one, and that's what's on the kids' birth certs. Boxer, motorcycle racer, and entrepreneur. Well, she couldn't spell entrepreneur, and I wouldn't spell it for her, so that was a bit of a stalemate. So I think 2 ABA finals, boxed on the very last boxing circus in the world, Fred Brophy's boxing tent out in the outback in Australia. That sort of qualifies me for boxing. Motorcycle racing, I remember 1989, Claude who I sat next to in school, had older brothers in London, and we got like a telephone caller. They rang home to their mum and dad, and we found out there was a 120-mile-an-hour lap done at the Isle of Man TT. And I can remember that day to now. It brought me to tears, really, to come forward. Oh, you can hear my voice quivering. To come forward 35 years later and actually have an application into the Manx, into the Classic TT. It's just the stuff of dreams.
Adrian, I think you just convey so brilliantly the emotion that is behind this, because I think for anybody who just sits and watches, it's, that's one thing. You see these riders just taking on the course, but actually sometimes there's not very much understanding about what goes into making that happen.
Yeah, you've got the paperwork, you've got the computer side of trying to find it all, the rules and the regs. Now, as you know, trying to sign me up on this, I am computer illiterate and I fight against it. So that's the most basic part of it. Then it's the not knowing. It's a bit harder for me. I don't really have anyone who races that I'm sort of close with that knows it. And you can just end up pestering people too much with questions, which I have done to Will Birchall and Pete Gibson. And I'm grateful to both of them for their help. So for me, having no racing family, no racing background, no people around me but myself, it's even more difficult. But I bought a PlayStation game and I've started playing 1 game a day. It's taken me a month to get to the bottom of Bray Hill without falling off. It is mind-numbingly, oh my God, how anyone sits and plays PlayStation is beyond me. So I did that. I went to a motocross track 2 weeks ago for the first time ever. And we started going over some jumps and off-roading just to get used to the bumps on the circuit and a bit of more wheel spinning. And I've just had a rotator cuff. So as you talk to me, I'm in a sling for the next 6 weeks. So I've had a rotator cuff put back on, cataract taken out, and I'm waiting for a couple of vertebrae in my neck, which they say they'll do early next year, but I'm going to put that off till after the Isle of Man. So I'm sort of a bit bionic-y already, but I want to go to the grave having used this body, to its fullest. And I think If I could be an inspiration to other men, and this is something I'll get on to you in a minute when you ask me some more questions, I'll actually tell you about the bike and what the whole process is behind it.
You're listening to Startline, and we are with Adrian O'Connor. Well, just tell me then, Adrian, if you are on that start line in 2026, who is a team that you're going to have around you? Because you are going to need that support.
Well, funnily enough, I've missed out on two ZXR 400. So when I was at the Manx, I looked. Some of the grids were really oversubscribed. And I just thought, being a realist, wow, I thought there's nobody in the 400. I think it was like 42 people. And the same with the historic classes. And never having any money, I've nursed so many old shitty motorbikes around this world. I've been around the world on a Honda 160 pretty much. So I thought, wow, that's up my street. You know, packet of fag papers and an adjustable spanner inside your leathers. You probably limp, and a screwdriver. You'll limp most things home. So that's what I've entered. I've missed out on two really fast ZXR 400s. By an hour. Missed out on a banger one for £700, which I cried over because I couldn't drive down there, and I was going to go down yesterday and it was sold. So tomorrow morning, whatever date we're on, I won't say it because we'll ruin the interview, I'm going to pick up a £1,000 ZXR 400. So I'm going to have the bike. I'd like to do the bike for men if I get on the start line. I think men don't have a voice at this precise moment in history. There's very few men's charities, very few places for men to turn to. I don't believe all men are bad. There's probably a percentage. If I get the go-ahead, I'm sort of half thinking about having a GoFundMe page, not for money, or a petition page, I don't know, but I'd like someone to put in 50 pence or a pound. And I think I'd have a motorbike covered in all their names and call it Men's Voice or something like that, just to raise a bit of awareness for men and the struggles they're going through at the moment, because they seem to be very much forgotten.
And do you think, Adrian, this comes from a personal position? Is there some time that maybe you feel that you've been forgotten?
Well, I went through a lot of really hard years after boxing was taken away from me because I was quite good at it. I was tough. I cried, drank heavily for quite a few years. Because it was something I wanted to do as a kid and I was never allowed. And then to get to, I was old and washed up when I boxed, so they say, and I was in my early 20s. So I went through a few years lost. How really I started motorbike racing is I ended up in prison. And I was sat in a prison cell thinking, life is so short. Just always realised it would finish at some stage. Whereas if I was in a wheelchair, that's finite, So I was able to handle the whole thing and look at it through rose-tinted glasses, really. But it was a very hard time. So my story led on to a help group meeting for men and women. I just had so many broken men and women reach out to me, predominantly men. And even still now, 7 years down the line, I get men asking me for help and advice every week. So that's how I know that they're suffering out there. There's no real place to turn to. But it's also what got me motorbike racing. I sat in a prison cell and thought, God, time's just ticking away here, And it was brilliant. I would never have been so self-indulgent to spend the money on myself racing. But that time inside just really taught me how short life is.
Wow, that's quite a story, Adrian. And I think it just really gives us a sense of why this matters so much to you. And it's those little personal goals, isn't it? I guess the waiting for the decision is going to be an interesting time. How prepared are you for that decision?
What gives me good strength is I've rang them a lot. I wrote to them originally. So this year I went off and did loads of weird stuff. So I went to Aintree. They had their track sucked up by the road sweeper, and it's just a historic circuit. Not many people know about it. Wonderful, wonderful club racing. It's just so different to the bigger clubs. So I went to Aintree, then I stopped into Darley-Moor. Never been to either before. I think I got a third in Aintree, and I think I got 2 seconds in a third out of 4 races in Darley-Moor, which is a wonderful track. Really cool guy runs that, Eddie Nelson. He's an old-fashioned gentleman. I think there's a few places around to get a few lessons from Eddie and Darley-Moor. Then I went to Aberdare. I got 2 seconds. Aberdare was a bit scary with all those trees. It's just a funny, different place. Really enjoyed it. And then one of the NG officials come to me and he said, I've watched you working so hard. He said, if you ever want to go to the Manx, he said, give me a shout. He said, and I will support you fully. So I think he's either wrote a letter or he's rang, and he had done a lot of TTs. His support gives me good strength, hence why I'm buying the bike tomorrow. I haven't thought about them saying no, That's not an option. And I don't think they will, But we'll see.
And obviously the next few weeks is all about recovery for you. But after that, the physical side of getting ready, obviously the PlayStation game, which you're going to be prolific on, I imagine, over the next few months. And it's amazing how much people say that does genuinely really, really help.
Yeah, it doesn't really help me because, I think I've got the tums of a rhinoceros, But after doing the 800 miles around the circuit, it is realistic and it is good. I watched the onboard laps as well. But really, if I get the go-ahead, we were very lucky before we went to the Manx. So it was our first ever family holiday. We had this old banger caravan I gave 900 quid for. I spent 3 weeks doing it up. And we sold it. And I was at Donington Park. And this wonderful man, I ended up buying this £10,000 caravan for 5. And it's stunning. It's so homely. I have it in my head. You get one chance to do it and one chance to do it right. I'm miles behind other people, even though we had a family holiday in 1986 to the Isle of Man. And not a lot's changed. My kids went on the same little putt-putt cars and boats that I did in 1986 a few months ago. But I have it in my head to move the whole family in the caravan over there for maybe 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, and just go roundy on a motorbike every morning and do a few laps with the van. But, down Peel on the beach, it's just a beautiful island. So that's my plan for getting knowledge of the track if I get the go-ahead. I'm going to put everything into this. As I say, I'm starting a little bit later than everyone else. But I think Trevor Nation gave me the best advice. I met him up Castlecombe. I met him a few times. He's just a great character. I said, Trevor, I got an entry in for the Isle of Man. What should I do? He said, sit back and relax. He said, don't worry about going fast. He said, just think. He said, you got 37.5 miles of closed roads. He said, you'll never again get it in your lifetime. And ever since he's said that, he's taken all the pressure off, really. And it's, you just go for a fast spin with your mates, I think would be the best way of, that would be my best sort of way of how my head has come around to over the last few months.
Wow, that sounds like the perfect mindset to be in, Adrian. Are you quite out there? I know you're not massively a big fan of technology, as you've sort of hinted to, but are you okay with social media and just getting out there your message about how you're doing?
Funnily enough, I messaged a girl who did a really nice piece for the motorbike shop that's next to my house, Alex Martin Motorcycles. She did a really nice put together video, and I messaged her yesterday morning and I told her I'm sort of quite a character. Had dinner with Nelson Mandela. I went to South Africa to work in a motorbike shop at 70 quid. When I look back in 1990s, it was madness. I just thought it was penny for a poor boy, I thought, God, 70 quid, I'd be a multi-millionaire over there. So I worked in a motorbike shop over there for a month, and I just had mad times off it. I've had a row with the drummer out of AC/DC in his restaurant in New Zealand, which is quite a funny story. So I'm quite out there, and I messaged her yesterday to see would she do some videos of me and sort of do the journey, because, everyone's a digital creator apart from me, and I've probably got more humour and more stories and more fun than most. So that is something I am looking into. And then, of course, you, with this interview, it's sort of, I always look at the man upstairs, and he's always giving you ideas if you look. He's always giving you the next step forward if you actually sit back and look at, the little messages. Yeah, so that's in the pipeline. My face is okay for radio, TV, for, we'll have to see, Beth.
Do you know what? I'm going to wait to ask you about the Nelson Mandela and the AC/DC story until next time we chat, because it might be just too much for us today. If you are on Facebook, I think, aren't you, Adrian?
I'm just on there as Adrian O'Connor. I think I have it pretty much locked down. But, if there's a friend request from anyone who's genuinely interested, I can add you up. I do get a little bit carried away with our government and its policies at the moment. I would just say I'm a concerned dad with 2 kids who'd just like to give them the same upbringing that he had. So yeah, don't be put off by that. I'm Adrian O'Connor on Facebook. That's where I am. I probably will, if we speak again, have some sort of a platform set up, because I think it's the way to go. And as I say, I want to get men. The bike I'm going to buy is yellow. It sort of lends itself to just having loads of names written on it with a felt tip marker.
Are you quite creative then with the old felt tips?
I've never bought a birthday card or a Christmas card for anyone. I could literally make a card out of a piece of toilet roll and a marker and a bit of chewing gum.
You got a Blue Peter badge?
We didn't have that in Ireland, and if we did, I probably wouldn't have been allowed to watch it. But we had Bosco in Ireland, a little puppet that jumped out of a box. He didn't really make a lot. He screeched. We had Dustin the Turkey, who won the Eurovision. That sort of sums up Ireland quite a bit, I think. But yeah, I learned when I went to South Africa, I had no money, and I learned everything's better when the sun's shining. And I'm looking out of my garden now, and there's a couple of roses down the bottom. We're coming into November. I get happiness from that. I get happiness from bandit racing. other people would laugh at it and go, oh, it's not really a real motorbike and so on and so forth. You're still competing, you're still doing it. If you can get happiness out of the small things in life, the big things then they just all fall into place, you know.
Adrian, well, we really do hope that everything falls into place for you over the next few months, and all the best with your recovery. And all being well, we'll catch up with you when you've got some good news, maybe sort of December, January time.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, it'd be good. I think most people would like to see me enter the race, really, because, you know, say it's 3 laps, call it an hour. Imagine the peace and quiet. Imagine the peace and quiet the people closest to me would have. They'd have 1 whole hour of not listening to this.
Do you know what I'm imagining is the post-race interview, and I'm not sure whether I should avoid you or not. We'll see.
I think NG got one in Donington that had no bad language and was quite, yeah, but I got blocked by a few people on Facebook straight after. But it might have ruffled a few feathers. I think, yeah, me and the truth are not strangers. We're not strangers. You know, I just look at it all. It just adds a bit of excitement. And if everybody was the same, how boring would it be? And you know, without characters. And I think we get less and less in modern life. You know, people are so sanitized. So, yeah, I suppose I'm touching up for 50, but probably really I'm about 92. Don't tell them that in the Manx office. They'll definitely not allow me race due to age. Yeah, I'm about 16. But, do you know, it's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. And you know what? This whole program, when I saw it, I just thought, wow, what a stepping stone for people who really are unheard of, you know, and it's brilliant. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll talk to you again soon, Adrian. Take
Cool. Thank you, Beth.
Adrian O'Connor, I think I might have to invest in a microphone that's got a filter on it, perhaps, but there is no doubt that those post-race interviews will be very entertaining. Such a lot to digest, isn't there, from Adrian's story? And I think it's really inspirational as well. And if you'd like to get in touch with Adrian, the links to his social media page are on the podcast page. And actually, in the past couple of days, he's set up a special page for the Gracie Quinn Racing team. So do give that a follow. We'll be catching up with Adrian over the next few weeks and months as he hopefully receives that decision that he's hoping for the Classic TT. And also, I love how he just throws in dinner with Nelson Mandela, an argument with the AC/DC drummer. We will definitely explore those next time. Thank you very much indeed for listening to this episode of Startline. Do take some time to find the riders on social media. Your support is very much appreciated. And if you'd like to get in touch with me and be part of the podcast in the future, you can email beth@startline.im. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.